So let's start with clients. So, what questions do you feel like brands ask when they're contemplating their social strategy? And are they typically the right questions or not? There's the whole, you said this to me, which I love. Can I get me one of those ticky-tacky thingamajigs?
Yeah, that's an example of a bad question. But there is a range of questions that the clients ask, and some of them are really good questions. I think in general, anything that comes from a place of genuine authenticity and curiosity about the platform is a good question. So when it is grounded in more of an objective thing, such as, I want to grow my consumer base, I want to reach an audience I've never reached before, I want to drive deeper engagement, I want to understand how these platforms may enhance my brand experience, and I want to understand how my brand experience can enhance these platforms. Those are really good questions. And we may not have the answer right away, but there is a desire to have a curious and authentic conversation with the platforms, with creative agencies, with media agencies, with partners to be able to figure it out. Of course, there are the not so fun questions where, a client has maybe a checklist and they say, can I get me one of them tiki-talkies? Which, it is a real question that I was asked. How do I get me one of them tiki-talkies? Or a snappity snaps, or, it is that kind of I think I do a checklist. I think I should be on that. I feel like a musical brand. It feels like somebody might want to sing me or dance me. So put me in the tiki-talkie. Those are the wrong questions, obviously.
So then, how do you help a brand figure out where it should play and where it shouldn't? Because I can imagine why they have the desire to kind of be everywhere that they can be.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is the fault of the industry, I think, because we are, we're such an inventive and innovative and sort of first to market kind of industry that we all run to whatever the next big thing is. And then clients have a tremendous sense of FOMO because they're not a part of it. So I think we drive a lot of clients feeling left out if they don't do something. Everybody's doing it, kind of thing. So I think part of it is our responsibility. But the other thing is, the more that we have conversations with clients about what are you trying to achieve, let's start there. Once we do that, then we can figure out, where does social make sense? Does it make sense? And I think maybe one of the questions we're not asking enough of our clients is not what social can do for you, but what can you do for social? How will you leave social or any platform or any experience with a consumer better than you found it? That we don't often turn it around. To make sure there is a little bit of social responsibility from the client side before we, give them a tiki-talkie.
So it's just so funny because it almost feels like that's the state of advertising for the last 20 plus years. It's not been about leaving it better than we found it. So, I mean, when do you say, no, that's not a good idea? I mean, I know they can ask bad questions, but truly, have you said to a client, no, absolutely, that's a bad idea?
Totally, we do. We do it more often than maybe you would expect us to. But I think the best clients are grateful for that point of view, right? I mean, I think we all know that if we can't, that's our role. We're supposed to push back. That's why we're experts in the field that we're in. And if we don't have a really good answer for why a client should be on LinkedIn or should be on Snap or should be on Meta, then you don't just do it just to do it, So I do think there is a tremendous amount of respect, provided that you have a really good relationship with your client where you can push back on those things. You do have to balance the tension of, you push back strategically, but creatively there might be a really good tactical execution that you can't wait to experiment with. But you do have to go back to the strategy all the time and ask, is it the right thing to do at the right time?
Well, it's funny because one of the things that we sort of bandied about when we were prepping is the risk of being too tactical. How to avoid treating these platforms as simply tactical executional platforms, which, again, having been in digital advertising for a long time, I think is our gut reaction. Our desire is to simplify and automate and scale and put things everywhere. I mean, what's the risk there?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of risk if you are not already thinking about how to be a social first company, or you weren't born in social. I mean, that is, I think, some of the jealousy that brands genuinely have. If you were born in social, your brand knows how to live there. It lives and dies there. There's already, it's almost tactical and brand building at the same time. That's one of the benefits of being a 21st century company, is that your product and your brand are often indistinguishable from one another. When you're working with older companies who are very more brand led, and then then product-led after that. It is hard sometimes for brands not to think more tactically before they think about the bigger brand, because they just want to be in that space. So I think a little bit is the orientation of, where you start, where you're born, where you're natural, where you feel comfortable and where you don't feel comfortable. But it is, I get it. I have a lot of empathy for why brands who were not born yesterday want to behave like they were. There is something really refreshing and agile to thinking like that. But if you're not careful, you can use it tactically, and then all of these tactics a brand does not make. I think we've all been in this business long enough to know that the best plans, the best media plans, the best creative plans are robust. They're not just one thing. All of the things add up to building a brand, building a business, driving sales, all of that stuff, and we shouldn't really separate it from each other.
So if you're a 100-year-old brand, you still need to figure out where you belong and where you don't. So are they at a disadvantage? Like, how do you get past the sort of disadvantage of being a 100-year-old brand?
Yeah, well, chances are, even if you're a 100-year-old brand, somebody is talking about you somewhere in the social space. So at the very least, right, you should be listening to those conversations and understand how you do exist in those spaces. I think, as we talked about in the prep, just because a platform exists doesn't mean you should exist within it. I mean, that's a lot of arrogance to just be like, let me just spread my brand everywhere. Let me just give it, to all of the people and all of the channels and all of the ways. That's not really the point of these platforms. We have to make sure we respect and understand what makes these platforms special. Why do people engage with these platforms to begin with? And again, it goes back to, am I adding to that? Or am I detracting from it? Because, once we go on platforms and enjoy it and then see just honestly a pollution, it's like a pollution, right? We have to be really careful about what we put out there.
I think, personally,
ruins
I feel
it.
like that's starting to happen.
Oh, it's already happened. I think it's deeply polluted. It's really hard to go through any one of my feeds and not like, this was a sponsored post. Is there any not sponsored posts on my feed? We have ruined the experience without even realizing what we're doing just to get in on it. We've already changed it before it's even had a chance to sort of manifest itself in its truest, most special form.
That was super depressing, but totally honest.
Keep at it, advertise.
No, I'm being totally serious, because where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Honestly, if it's polluted, how do you pull back?
Yeah.
As an industry, I guess, who pulls back?
It is a very of the times conversation. And it's a little bit what I mean about social responsibility. I mean, it feels a little bit small-minded to think of social responsibility in the advertising world just outside of, sustainability and environment campaigns. But it is all a part of the noise that we put out there. And we have a responsibility to our brand. As agencies, we have a responsibility as brand stewards. We have a responsibility to the consumers that we want to have respectful and amazing and engaging conversations with, to not just throw stuff out there and see what happens. I think we've also overplayed that hand. There is a limit to, let's be iterative, let's try some things out. If it fails, change it up. Okay, that generally makes sense. But if you're constantly just putting stuff out there and just putting it out there and putting it out there and putting it out there and not really thinking about how is it performing, how are people engaging with it, maybe I should pull back. Maybe I should stop talking for a second. Maybe I should just listen to what else is happening.
We're so bad at that.
We're so bad at that.
We definitely have a just because we can, we definitely think we should problem.
Absolutely. That's the whole point.
Right?
Yeah.
We do. We have a huge problem with that. You actually set me up nicely, because I wanted to talk about, a thing called measurement, within and across these environments. And there are some things I think that are easy and maybe more obvious, and there's some things that are super, super hard. So how do you help brands navigate this? Because I would like to believe that they both genuinely want to understand, and I know that they need to demonstrate value.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you help them with that?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I think just like anything in our industry, we can overmeasure and we can undermeasure. I mean, we're all victims and perpetrators of that. So in general, I think that there are three ways we look at social and social measurement. One is the optimization route, the more tactical route. This is when we think about how will our content strategies and our content creative be affected by things like followers, subscribers, views, engagement, right? You make changes to your strategy, you make changes to the creative, you say, okay, this one's performing better than that one, let me keep running at that. That's an optimization, short-term, tactical strategy necessary. I think more where we're interested in playing is the second one, which is brand. What impact does social have on the brand? We don't think about social and digital often as a brand device, because it was born, at least digital was, in that click-through, rate era, where we didn't really, we were satisfied with what was it, 0.01% click-through. We'd be like, oh my God, we beat the national average at 0.0. You know, we were so satisfied with that we didn't think about it as a branding mechanism. But now there's all sorts of ways to measure brand views and brand linkage and all of that through Meta. Meta has tools that does it. YouTube has tools that does it. So you can actually look at the impact of any social work on the brand itself. The third way that we think about it, which is maybe more full circle of where it was born, is definitely more cost per acquisition based. In a world in which so many brands were born in the 21st century, where they're driving commerce through social, and in an era where many more 20th century brands are trying to drive bookings, sales, whatever you want to call it, through social channels, you do have to look at the cost per acquisition. You're looking at lifetime value. Ideally, those things are connected to overall sales objectives and stuff. So there are, three distinct ways to measure social. You don't apply them all the time to everything. You have to figure out what land am I playing in, what KPI am I playing in, right? You can't say, I really want to make sure I get a lot of eyeballs on this and then measure, a cost per acquisition associated with that. That would be the wrong application of a measurement tool.
Well, one of the things I think we think about a lot at Forrester is how to help guide brands toward picking the right proxy metrics that are the right leading indicators for whatever the sort of long-term business KPI is. I mean, do you feel, or have you helped brands do the work to connect some of these metrics that are maybe not that are less classic proxy metrics to something like incremental impact on business?
Yeah, exactly. I do think that, that is one of the gifts of the media mix model, which so many media agencies invented as a way of saying, look, let's not just think about any one of these things in isolation. That would be one way to answer it. Think about the aggregate of everything that you have going out in the market. So you're not just singling out one tool, but if you look at all the things that a brand has out there at the same time, how is that impacting sort of the larger impression of the brand? We have been making more and more business cases, as you might imagine, especially throughout the pandemic, of what is the role of marketing for the business and the brand. And that makes a ton of sense. And it has been probably an easier argument during the pandemic than it has been in the past, which sometimes messes with your brain a little bit. In a world of the pandemic where so many brands were pulling back and trying to figure out how to deal with supply chain and demand issues, how do you convince them to spend money on marketing? And yet the reality is that so many brands had to start their whole business proposition from scratch. And so marketing becomes an integral part of how they redefine the business, how they redefine connecting with consumers, and what they're actually selling, right? Travel will never be the same again. Hospitality will never be the same again. Wellness will never be the same again. So you do have an amazing opportunity to reposition a business, and that obviously has a ton of impact on more than just the brand and the typical marketing metrics.
I suspect we're going to go through those conversations again as we hit recessionary pressure.
Absolutely.
I mean, we certainly believe in marketing through those kinds of challenges, but I know it can be a conversation. For sure.
Yeah.
So maybe last question. I know you love this one. I love this one. If you could ask the social platforms, I know they're not monolithic, but if you could ask them to do one thing, what would it be?
Yeah, I really think that if they could keep their special, that would be the most important thing to do. I mean, and that is, again, we kind of talked about it earlier, that's very hard for all of us to do. The reason some of these platforms were born, was to fill a need that people didn't even know they had, or to amplify their lives, or to deepen relationships, or I mean, some of it is so special. It is so human-based. It was for the good of the world. So many of these brands were born for the good of the world. I mean, when I think about, what TikTok has done for my very shy daughter in expressing herself, in connecting with people, in news, I mean, all sorts of ways, there was a goodness and a genuineness to these platforms. How do you keep that specialness while you also have to run a business? And the more brands that get on it without that social responsibility that we talked about, with agencies that are not practicing or helping those brands practice that social responsibility, the more that specialness gets lost. So that's a hard business proposition, I know, but the democratization sometimes of the platforms just puts us in a tough spot where we don't keep the special, and then we're on to the next platform.
They're businesses, and by the way, they're ad revenue driven businesses, and I'm so absolutely with you. I mean, I don't know. How do we convince their board and their shareholders that there's a way to find a middle ground?
Yeah, and that is also why creativity is so critical. If you don't have great ideas, if you don't have great creative, you are actively diminishing the role of the brand and the role of these platforms. It is our responsibility as a creative agency to put out the very best ideas we can and respect the consumer while we do so.